Welcome everyone to episode 20 of Twitch Tales. Death in the Darkness. Hope you're having a good time today, and hope you remember a little bit about last week's episode. If not, I will give you a brief recap now. So Apis, your stats over there, in case you are new to watching the series and have somehow decided to jump into episode 20 without watching any of the other ones. You do you. Apis is a dwarf, and they have found themselves in Shadridge, a tiny little frontier village, and they have discovered that there is something afoot, something going missing. They were arriving back from the Colton's farm with their ally, their acquaintance, Toria, in tow. They went to the apothecarist shop, where they found the apothecary Edith very, very, very severely malnourished, almost skeletal in her form, slumped in her chair, with barely the strength to even raise her own hand. Almost dead. We asked her what the hell had done this to her, and she said the darkness. We asked her if she knew what exactly it was, this effect that was having some hold on her, and she said yes, but she was too weak to go into any further detail. We said, what can we do to help you recover? And she said, rest. We need to rest. And so we placed her in bed, and we lit up the room around her with all manner of lanterns and torches and lamps and candles, just to make sure that every square inch of her room was illuminated and there was no darkness. We then left two guards, two Knights of Kevostna, on duty, guarding her through the night while she rested, while we ran off to the head of the Knights at the barracks to try and inform Paul, the elderly gentleman who ran the Knights here in this frontier town. We needed to inform him of what had happened, but when we got there, we discovered Paul dead in his bed, merely a skeleton of a man with skin hanging loose over his bones, as though the muscles of his body had been entirely dissolved away. And that is where you find yourself, Apis, standing at the foot of Paul's bed, curtains drawn in their hands around this four-poster, with this shock of seeing this recently lively, somewhat elderly gentleman, now deceased in his bed, his white hair unaffected, his eyes staring wide and fearful up at the canopy of his four-poster. The covers of his bed seemingly tossed in a somewhat frantic manner, as though there was some sort of a struggle. What do we want to do? Behind you is your acquaintance Toria still. She is, in case you don't know anything about the situation, Toria is a 20-year-old human woman. She is a bit of a wannabe farmer and a brewer. She has no levels in any sort of adventurer. You do, however, have two other accomplices in the room with you, two wannabe knights, a squire and a potential squire. A prospective squire, sorry. How many lights are in the room? You can see that this room is dark. It is not illuminated. There are no candles lit. In fact, I'm going to make a perception check on your behalf really quickly, and if I remember how to do that, I go perception is wisdom, and I think it's the fourth one down, so I do this. Yes! Hotkeys for the win. Ooh, 23. As we start to frantically look around the room with our dark vision, and our senses are on full alert, especially now that we know that it's the darkness that is apparently the danger here, we look around the room and we can't see any sources of illumination. But as we sort of leave the curtains as they are and start to look around a little more, we can see that on the bedside table is a candle on a little candle holder, and there is a faint smell of smoke in the air. Just a very, very faint one that we wouldn't have picked up without a 23 perception check. As though the candle was extinguished. You want to light a torch, Asmiel says. So Apis quickly chucks down into their bag. They use their tinderbox and very quickly get the torch of one of their... You can see in your inventory below you have 8 torches. You grab one out, you light it up, and it starts casting dancing shadows over all of the objects in the room, all of the illuminated objects. Get the hell out of there, Fancy says. Two Bread Tom says, lights, quick. Burn everything down, says Loveless. Is there a weird shadow? You look around the room looking for weird shadows. I'm going to make an investigation check now, which, if I remember rightly, is this one. Investigation. Yeah, 5. Apis in the moment is feeling a little bit too worried and scared. They're letting the adrenaline come to them a little bit too much, and so their investigation isn't the most methodical. They're sort of looking in corners, and of course, as they're looking around, shadows are moving in the dozens. There are shadows dancing along the walls, and it's distracting Apis's mind, and they're looking over to see where the shadows are moving. But of course, every time they turn to look at it, they're moving the torch, which is turning the shadows, which is moving along the walls. And so every one of the objects in this room, there's a bookcase, there's a writing desk, there's a chair, there is a rug on the ground, there's a 4-poster bed, there's some curtains over the window, there's a bedside table with a candle on it, there's a big artwork on the wall. Everything that's potentially causing shadows is causing shadows because of the torch in your hand. You and the 3 other humanoids in the room as well are all causing dancing shadows on the walls. And so with the 5 investigation, unfortunately, there's no way of telling that if there was or is a shadow that shouldn't be here, there's no way of seeing it. Just start swinging our sword wildly around the room. Lantern of Revealing. Hear me out, guys. Not looting, but we need all the light resources we can get. We should grab all the light casting objects. Check under the bed. So we duck down under the bed, and we lift up the valance and cast our torch light so that hopefully it doesn't catch the valance on fire. But we're trying to do this as we're trying to get the torch light so that it illuminates under the bed, but also not close enough to our head, even though our head is also down there trying to get under the bed. So it's not the easiest to see under the bed. There's definitely shadows under there. It's very dark under the bed. Is the window open? Yes, it is. You see that you look across to the window, you see that the curtains are fluttering a little bit. You go to it and you see that it's propped open, and much like Edith's was, with a little bar to keep the window from slamming. So you, Toria, Darren and Warren are all frantically looking around the room for clues. Darren has actually left the room to go and investigate other rooms on this floor to see if there's anything else he can see going on. You turn to Tori and say, grab the candle, grab any sort of candles or lamps, lighting equipment that you can find. We need as much of it as possible. And she agrees, nods her head, and looks like she's on the verge of vomiting. She unlike you, who has been in a bit of a roaming adventurer all of your life, you have come across skeletons of animals and potentially like a lost wanderer once or twice in the woods. She has not. She has had a much more sheltered life than this. She didn't feel comfortable around goblins, and now she realizes that she's in the midst of something potentially much worse than goblins. So she's sort of holding it together in shock, but you can tell that she's going to have some troubles after this. You just hope that she can hold it together long enough to grab the torches and things required. So she does. She starts grabbing the torches. What are you doing while she's grabbing all the lighting implements? Look out the window, see if we can see something running away. Alright, so with one hand on the torch, the other hand, Apis goes over and pulls the curtains right back, pushes the window open as hard as they can, and holds the torch right out, looking to see if they can see anything. Obviously not putting it in front of their face, because then everything behind it gets... Holding it right up and out of the window as high as they can, which for a dwarf, the windowsill's like up to here anyway, so you're having a little bit of a harder time looking out of the window. You don't see anything. It is dark now. It is the onset of night time, and so everything outside is dark. Not like the middle of the night, but it's definitely like nautical twilight. If you can't find clues, get the hell out of there or you'll be framed for the murder. Well, luckily you were with 2 of the Knights of Kevostna, which are basically the police force here, and when you investigated them. If I've learned anything about the darkness, close the effing window. So Nemo, the Nemo part of Apis' brain decides to grab the window again and pull it shut, since they can't see anything outside. They pull it shut and they lock. You suddenly feel a presence behind you, and as you whip round, a hand grabs your hand grabs your wrist with the torch, and it's Warren, and who you almost clubbed with a flaming torch. And he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Calm it down. I just wanted to say, what did you mean by he's in danger? How did you know that this was happening?" And if you remember from last time, we ran to the barracks. We found Warren and said, "Hey, where's Paul?" And he said, "Oh, he went to bed. He wasn't feeling too good." And you suddenly went wide-eyed and said, "He's in danger. Come with me right now." Boom! And then you just ran off and bust his door down. And so he wants answers now. How the hell did you know that he was in danger? So what do you say? Write it in the chat, and I'll try and get to it. Drink shot of whiskey grants the bluff Dutch courage. Explain what happened with Edith. Are we telling him everything that we know? Is there anything we're holding back? Tell him about Edith after leaving the house. Town meeting in the morning. It's all good. Tell him the truth, otherwise he'll think we're involved. Cool. So we tell him the truth, but we first say, "Listen, I will tell you everything, but we need to get out of this house. There's danger in the darkness. We need to light up as much as we can. Always keep a torch on you." At this point, Toria has lit one of the lanterns that she's found and hands it to what's his face, Warren. Hands it to Warren, and then she starts to light her own candle. She's got a candle and a lantern. That's all she's found in this particular room. At this point, as he grabs the torch and he's kind of the lantern, and he's kind of a little bit confused with you, you hear an exclamation of surprise from Darren in the next room over, who says, "Oh, this is interesting." And what is it? What is it? We run out of the room to try and find him, and he finds that in the next room over there is a smashed lantern on the ground. It is seemingly a bit of a bathroom where there is a clawfoot tub and various buckets that he can fill with hot water to use to fill the tub with. He got a bit of a wash basin in there as well, and on the side of the wall where there would have been a hanging lantern, it seems like the hook has been taken out of the wall and the lantern has fallen and smashed. We see this and say, "Look, we're not in a safe place right now. We need to get back into that barracks, light up the place as much as we can, and I'll explain everything. Don't try to keep a torch on you at all times." So Darren, Warren, Darren, sorry. Why did I have to name them such similar names? Darren says, "I'm sorry, who are you?" And we say, "There's not time for that. My name's Apis. Please, just follow me." And you set off downstairs and Toria follows you. Warren, let's see, how's Darren going to feel about taking orders from someone that he doesn't know is outranking him in the Knights of Kevostna. So that's one fewer person you'll have to come clean to. You do, however, as we run off down the stairs, you do hear Warren saying something to Darren, which sounds like he is filling him in on Apis outranks us or something. He's a Knight of Kevostna and he's undercover. You hear something along those lines that makes you think, "Ah, shit, he's perpetuating my lie now." Does Paul live alone? So we run through the house and we don't see any other bedrooms. But we're not checking out every single room. We're trying to get out of there, right? In the bathroom, yes. If it came in and out of the window, why did it go into the bathroom? Good question. If it's the candle in the lantern, we can assume that the darkness is not only attacking in dark environments, it's actively creating dark environments by eliminating sources of light. Maybe. Let's do a thorough search of the house and surroundings. Maybe it might still be in the house and we want to kill it. Warren would know if Paul lived alone. Yes, but you're getting out of the house, right? That's your primary concern. I'm just seeing if Apis is doing anything on the way out. Is our cloak blue at the moment? No, we haven't sort of specified what our cloak is. I think our default cloak wasn't it like a picture of Mel on our cloak? I don't know. What do you guys think Apis' cloak would look like at the moment? For those who don't know, Apis is wearing a cloak of many fashions, which is it's a minor enchantment that allows it to change shape and color to suit whatever whim Apis wants at the moment. Was Paul overwhelmed in the bathroom by the ghost knocking down the lamp and then got back into bed to die? Let's get out of there. Yellow and black stripes at one point it was, yeah, we tried to make it look like a bee at some point. Might have a slightly yellow staining in the lower parts. Where did all these yellow icicles come from? Alright, so we run out of the house, leading Toria out, and we stand by the front door, staring around with a torch in the hand and looking into the darkness of the shadow. Just everything is darkness though, and the torchlight only illuminates like 20 feet, so you're really not getting too much. It could be anywhere if it was here at all. But you stand on the porch, make sure that Toria gets out safely, and then you see the two guards come past. Darren gives you a bit of a side eye out of suspicion as he passes you. But they all start to head back towards the main house, except for Darren, who sort of walks down the porch and then stops and turns around waiting for you. Once everybody's out, you set off down the steps, and he says, just one moment here. And you, I really don't have the time, pal. And he says, what's your night number? And he asks you for your night number. What do you say? $69. 666. Tell the truth. 007. 42. A lot of people saying 42. 1, 2, 3, 4. And he says no numbers. Nemo says no, tell the truth. No lies. Alright, Apis is going to give a number and hope for the best. Put a thumbs up if you think Apis is going to give a number and just like hope that it's enough to bother him. Put a thumbs down if Apis is not going to give any number, and at this point Apis is going to be forced to either come clean or try and divert the situation in some other way. The majority of people saying no, Apis is not going to give a fake number, digging themselves further into the hole of this web of lies that they're making. And it's not overwhelming. It's not an overwhelming majority though. There are a lot of yeses, but the majority are definitely in the no's. Now's not the time. We don't want to lie. The guy will try and arrest us if we come clean right now. Potentially. We can just run off. Potentially. Alright, so the majority of people, the majority of synapses in Apis' mind decide that they're not going to give a fake number at the moment. The next choice that they have to make then in the split-second moment is that they're not going to lie and give another number, but are they going to try and evade the question, or are they going to come clean? Yay if they are going to try and evade the question, just try and deceive them and be like, not right now, and move on. Or no if you think they are going to come clean at this stage. There is a squire of Kevostna who has just asked us, what's our night number? And we've decided we're not going to give a fake number. By the looks of it, most people are of the option of trying to evade the question rather than give the truth right now because of the situation. All right. Most people are saying yes, try and evade the question. So Apis is going to try and evade the question. I'm going to roll a deception check on Apis's part, which is a boop, boop. Boom! Hotkeys for the win. Oof! That's a 3. Do we want to use our... Let me see. I think we've got both inspiration... No, we don't have inspiration. We must have used it. Do we use inspiration for something, guys? Because we don't seem to have it over there. We have a horseshoe still. I think we used inspiration for something. Because we don't have it. So if we want to... We used it for a reroll. Thank you. So if we want to, we can reroll that deception check with a lucky horseshoe. It'll be the last time that we can use lucky horseshoe until dawn. It refreshes at dawn. So put a yes or a yay emote if you do want to use lucky horseshoe right now to reroll that to try and evade the question. Put a no emote if we want to keep it in case we need it later. If we do say no, then we have failed that evasion attempt, and he will press us further on like why we're pretending to be a knight. How many hours till dawn? Well, it is literally twilight right now, so all of the night. It is probably like 7 p.m. or something, 6:30, 7 p.m., something like that, and it will be about 12 hours or so before dawn. Alright, the majority of people saying yes to use the lucky horseshoe. So I'll go over there, I'll go into Apis Hive, I will turn off the lucky horseshoe. And you guys have got to be really nice to Nightbot, remember? Be nice to Nightbot because we're about to use the lucky horseshoe to reroll a deception check. That is better, but not as good as it could have been. With a 10 for deception on trying to evade the question. Darren is suspicious of us and the fact that we're not wearing any knight's insignia. So I'm going to allow him a contested check on his insight versus ours. So he stops us down the bottom of the stairs and says, wait. And you say, I don't have time for this. And he says, what's your knight number? And you say, right now, there's a dead body inside. We can't talk. Let's talk in the barracks. And you start to move off, and he sort of just squints his eyes a little more and then follows you. It's not long before you guys are all safely inside. Well, safely inside of the barracks. You see that inside there is, I think there would be there'd be about 5 or 6 chairs around a table. There's also a rack that seems to have been bashed up. The first thing you notice is that this is a renovated barn. It seems to have been a hay barn at some point and is now being used as a makeshift barracks while they make it up properly. There are some walls inside, interior walls that are being put up, but you can see like the frame of wood around it, but none of like the plywood sort of situation has been put up on it. You can see that there's a coat rack, a hook on the wall for personal coats and belongings. And there's like a shoe rack beneath that as well. It's probably big enough to house about 6 or so knights. And you know that there is Warren, Darren, Kathleen, and Schlefer, which is the half-elf that you met last time. And then there's Paul as well. You don't see any other knights in here. Has Apis told anyone about the lie? I thought you missed us saying to tell Mayor Jackson. Nobody. Apis hasn't told anybody about the lie. So we walk into the barn with the 2 knights and Toria. Instantly, Toria goes over with the candle and starts to light some of the torches on the walls in the sconces that have been placed in the barn wall, and lights up the place a little more. A few of them were already lit, just only the ones around the table where they were sitting when you first arrived. But she goes around and lights up every candle that she can every candle and torch and everything that she can see. There's also a lantern that she finds near the front door that she turns on and puts in the center of the table, and then she goes and sits at the table with her back to the wall. And kind of looks like she's just kind of starts rocking just gently back and forth, breathing quite belaboured. Warren goes over and sits at the table with her, and he looks a little bit in shock as well. But he's a little bit older. He's a human. He's probably actually he was in his late teens. So from the way he's acting, he seems a little older. He's a little bit more mature. He's more ready for a situation like this because of his training with the Knights, I suppose. The two of them sit at the table, but Darren doesn't. As you've walked in, Darren closes the door to the band behind and just stands at the door. And he says, "Right, let's start explaining things. What the hell's happened?" We go to sit at the table. What do we do? What do we do? Who do we talk to? What are we looking for? What do we tell them? Apis should look for a knight's crest or insignia in the barracks. We could do so. Tell them about Edith and the darkness creature and the other death. Also tell them that we aren't a knight. Come clear and confess. Come clean. We need to come clean. Tell everyone about everything. First explain about Edith. The full true story. Come clean. Most people are saying to come clean, but also people are indicating that we should tell them about Edith and the creature first. So first, Apis sits at the table and says, the first thing we need to know is that there is some kind of monster that is attacking through the darkness. Edith has almost died tonight in a very similar fashion to the way that we found Paul. That's how I knew that he was in danger. It's apparently attacking elderly folk. It might have even attacked the Colton's animals on their farm. One of their cows withered away to the point of death in a similar fashion to how we just found Paul. At this point, Toria turns and almost projectile vomits down the side of her. It just seems to come out of nowhere, as like you mentioned Paul, and it seems to come back to her like the state of his skeletal body. We're not sure exactly what to do. Warren sort of puts a hand on her shoulder, and he kind of looks to Darren as if to say, like, can you help? Can you clean this up or something? And Darren kind of just stands there staunch with his arms crossed. You notice that his arms are crossed, but his lower hand is resting on the pommel of his longsword that's by his side. The darkness seems to be attacking and draining the strength out of creatures, and Edith was almost dead. I ran off to here. I heard from you guys that Paul was feeling weak lately, and so I figured he might be in danger, and sure enough. And the guy says, so now that we're at the guy at the door, Darren, he says, so now that we're inside and safe, what's your night number? And Warren says, Darren, I don't think it's really the time, can you? And he says, shh. He just holds his hand up and he does outrank Warren, so he shuts him up. Says, what is your night number? At that point we say, I don't have one. And he unfurls his arms and grabs his pommel, grabs his sword, and says, so you're not a knight? No, I'm not. Warren is genuinely taken aback by that, and looks across the table at us like, what? I'm not a knight. I'm sorry that I lied. It was at the time. It was just I was worried that I was going to get framed for Jack Creed's murder. I wanted to avoid awkward questions about who I was and why I was there. I've been telling you the truth about everything else, I swear. And the squire Darren says, "Are you aware that what's the word? Are you aware that impersonating a knight is a punishable offence?" Aye, I am, but I didn't think that in the circumstances it was. He says, "I'm afraid I'm going to have to put you in handcuffs for this." And he reaches down to his belt and he's got a set of manacles there. He's going to try and handcuff us. Do we avoid this? Do we try and talk him out of it? What is Apis' port of call here? He's about to be arrested for impersonating a Knight of Kevostna. didn't mean to get it this far. We were paranoid and extremely stressed last time we met Warren and Kathleen. We say this then. Look, I never meant it to get this far. I was paranoid that somebody was that I was going to get in trouble if I wasn't a knight. So I'm not sure why I did this. I'm sorry. We did this. This is the consequence. Persuasion roll to talk him out of it. It's too dangerous right now to be in handcuffs. All right, so we're going to try and talk him out of it. Drop to our knees and cry. Tell him some more stuff about what we're doing. Don't get violent. If we start attacking knights, then our crime goes up significantly. Talk him out of it because it's the emergency. All right, so don't resist, but we're going to try and talk him out of it. So I will roll a persuasion check for that then. That persuasion is the last charisma thing, which is this one. There we go. A 2 + 1. So we stammer and stutter as we say, "No, please. It was just a. It was a mistake. I'm sorry that I." And he comes over with his manacles. And we have been unsuccessful in talking our way out of it. The last opportunity is: do we try and resist? Do we try and actively pull our hands away and get out of the ban before he manacles us? This is our last option to make before we are manacled and officially arrested. Thumbs up if you want to resist. Thumbs down if you do not want to resist. Thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. There's 1 or 2 thumbs ups, 3 thumbs ups, but most thumbs down. Tell him he's a fucking dick, but let him arrest us. Moron. Alright, this is an overwhelming majority saying no, don't resist. Apis sort of sighs heavily, realising their mistake has come back to bite them in the ass in the worst time possible. And we put our hands out and he manacles us. Toria is unable to help. She's sort of wiping her mouth and looking across the table like she's still in shock about the whole situation. She's not exactly working out what's going on right now. He manacles us and says, "You're under arrest. You'll be staying here. You'll be staying here in custody until we work out what's happened." He turns to Warren and says, "Warren, I need you to head to let's see." No, he's going to go instead because he outranks him. He picks you. He sort of stands you to your feet and he walks you over to the other side of the barn, and you see that a couple of the stables have been. Couple of the stable pens that where the individual horses would have been in this barn have been converted into a makeshift holding pen with wooden walls placed up around the thing. The stable door is still just a stable door, but he walks you inside and there is a bit of it looks kind of like a converted hitching post at the moment. He takes you over to it and he adds your manacles around it and then clips them on the other side of it, so you are chained to a wooden hitching post. In one of these stands, and he says, "You'll be under arrest until one of my superiors can decide on the appropriate charges and punishment. Warren, you're to stay here and guard the prisoner while I head back to the town to find Kathleen." Kathleen is his outranking officer. So we are arrested and we are in a makeshift jail cell with Warren on guard duty. He walks across and says, "Madam, are you feeling okay to travel? I think it would be better if you come with me to the town." And you hear a weak acceptance before the door to the barn opens and closes. You can't see any of this, but you can hear it from outside of your little cell. Reason with him. We've already tried the reasoning with him. That was encompassed by the persuasion check, which rolled a 3. So unfortunately, our reasoning is not happening in the moment. The next thing you notice as well is that the cell that he's put you in is not illuminated. There is the barn door, the stable door, doesn't go all the way to the ceiling or the floor, and so there is light from the illumination from outside. But inside this stable cell, there is no immediate source of light. You are in a dark cell. He also, obviously, when you get arrested, most of your things get taken off of you. So your bag and your weapons, of course, have been taken off you and put outside. anything that would be in your pockets, so like some of the smaller things, maybe your lucky horseshoes still in your pocket, your potion of healing's still probably on your belt, things like that. But things that would be in a bag, you don't have access to yet. As incoherent as we have been tonight, can we reason with Warren? Yes, so that would be a different roll, that would be a different check, because it's a different person in a different situation. We're not trying for the same thing with the same person. So there's a moment or two, we hear the footsteps on the sort of padded straw floor of this place as Warren approaches. And then you see him standing at the open stable door, and he says, "You're not a knight. Why would you lie to us?" "I'm sorry, Warren. I never meant it to get this far. I didn't even anticipate being around the town too long. I thought it would just... I was in the midst of my own investigation into the goblins. I'd killed a bunch of goblins, and so I had the things that the goblins had stolen from Jack Creed's house in my pocket and on my possession. You remember I returned the silverware and everything, right?" And he sort of looks at you and nods. "The goblins had killed him and stolen his things, and I'd killed them and stolen them back. And I was bringing them back, and so I didn't want you to find me on the farm with his things in my possession and end up here. I'm sorry that I lied, but I in the moment I panicked, and I just thought that it was the easiest way for me to get out of the situation," which it was, but obviously it's come back to bite me in the ass now. And he says, "Yes, I can understand why you do that, and for what it's worth, I believe you. But impersonating a knight is a punishable offence, so you'll have to remain here until Kathleen decides what to do. Can we ask for a herbalism book back?" We say, "Listen, I'm telling you the truth about the danger. There's darkness." And he says, "No, I believe you. I can tell the fear in your voice and the state that we found Paul in. It can't be something that's not supernatural. There's some sort of monster is at work here." And then he seems to notice the darkness around you and says, I'll get you a lantern." And he walks over. You hear padded feet on the ground. I'm going to roll something real quick. Where is it? Chances. All right. You hear the padded feet leaving from just outside of your range of view. And then you hear as the sound of a body hits the ground and calls out in pain. And then you hear the sound of a short sword being drawn from a sheath and starts wielding around. And then he starts to run. You hear him clamber back to his feet and start to run. There is another as he's a little further away now. Ooh, shit. You hear a stumbling and a crash of wood as he seems to have fallen into chairs or the table or something. And then there is a smashing of glass, as if he's just bumped into the table and knocked the lit lantern onto the straw floor of this barn. He whips around and says, "It's here!" And you can just about hear him shout, "It's here!" You hear him swinging wildly, and there is a sort. Oh, actually, I'll make a perception check. See how much of this you can hear. Perception would be that one. With an 8, you don't hear too much more. Before then, you hear a You shout out, Warren, let me out! I can help you, please! Warren! He is going to... let's see. You hear the clang of metal against wood, as if his sword has hit or struck something. And then you hear the body hit the floor. It seems light. It doesn't seem like the weight of more than just bones and a bag of metal. What do you guys want to do? It's been about 5 minutes since you were locked up here. Panic. That's what I want to do. Try to break out. So you are again. So just to set the scene for you, you have metal manacles around your wrist. The chain between them is wrapped around a horizontal hitching post made of wood. It is fairly solid wood because it's designed to obviously hitch a horse to, but it's potentially breakable. You have a +1 strength, as you can see over there, so you can potentially try and smash out of it. You're also proficient in athletics, which I would use for any sort of attempt to break out of it. You would also be able to... Well, let me see, actually. No, not yet. You can see that there is a light illuminating the front part of your cell, but you are in darkness. In terms of spell slots, we are, I believe, at full hit points still, but we've used 2 of our spell slots. We have 1 spell slot left for the day, I think. Unless we used it to cure wounds or something. No, we used it. We don't have any spells. We used cure wounds on Edith. We will put it to a poll. Give me some ideas as what you want to do in our on our turn. Do we still have the magic key? Yes, I would say that the magic key is a small enough item that we would have it on our person rather than in our bag. Try using athletics to rotate the cuff, use the mechanical strength to break them. Move into the light. Can't do that. Do we have access to the tinderbox? Maybe. Tinderbox I don't think would help us in this situation, though, unless we want to set our own cell on fire. Start working the shackles back and forth, trying to sort our way out through the wood. So we've got a few options here. Magic key. Try the magic key on the manacles. There's a 5% chance that they open, and we managed to unlock them. We can try and saw our way out of the wood using the back and forth motion of the handcuffs. We can try and just break the wood, find a joint of the wood to try and smash them out. We can try anything else. We can't reach our pockets. No, we can reach our pockets. We're relatively. We've got a fairly long chain on the thing. I don't mind us being able to reach our pockets. We're nimble. Look, we've got +2 dexterity. Fairly nimble. We can get to our stuff. If there's a fire, then attempt to break out. There's no fire, then stay there because you'll get blamed for the death. You heard the smashing of lantern, and you know that there is a lot of dry straw on the ground in this barn. Is there straw on the floor of our cell? Yes, there is. Break the post, but stay in the cell. I say we go stealth. We could just try and stealth, so that's the 4th option. Just try and go quiet and pretend like we're not here and hope that it doesn't come for us, whatever it is. No spells, no inspiration, no horseshoe, no weapons. Everything's fine. Everything is fine, guys. Everything is fine. Trapped in here with nothing to defend ourselves. Yep. Mystery keys in our pocket. Play dead. Pretend to pass out. Athletics check. Stealth mode. So the 4 options that I'm hearing are try the mystery key. Try saw your way out. Try bust your way out. or try stealth and pretend like you're not here and hope it doesn't detect us. Describe our cell again. So it's imagine a horse's pen in a stable, a single horse pen. So there's like it seems to have been cleared out of like the horse, the hay and the trough that would have been in here for the horse. But there is the horse gate at the front, which is our cell door. And then all of the walls of the cell have been placed. There have been wooden planks placed up against them, so that our cell walls are full floor-to-ceiling wooden walls now. But the door is still like a stable barn door kind of situation. And there is straw on the ground, and we are in the center of the thing on like a dance bar, like a hitching post made of wood. The cell itself is not locked. Alright. I don't think there's any other options coming in, and boy, are you guys talking. So, can we try Horizon Walk, Rob? Portal away. We don't have access to the portaling ability of Horizon Walker yet, not consciously. That's a thing that comes later. We did it once subconsciously, in the same way that like Harry Potter made the glass disappear before he knew he was a wizard and all that sort of stuff. Like we had innate powers that somehow manifested, but we didn't have any sort of control over it. It's not something that we can control until much later level. Can the cloak mimic the hay? So we could be a hay bale. That is potential, yeah. I'll put that as the fifth option. Try and use our cloak to pretend to be a hay bale. I suppose that would go in with this stealth, wouldn't it? We are not locked in the cell. Just to be super clear, I've said it multiple times now, we are not locked in the cell. We are handcuffed around the hitching post. So if we used the key and it worked, we're out. Because the handcuffs are now off and we can just walk out of the cell. If it works, it disappears. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It keeps around until it works. Obviously, if we break our way out, then we don't need the key because we've just got our handcuffs manacled together. It'll be harder to swing a sword and things when our handcuffs are manacled together, but I think our current result equals try the key quietly. Yeah, most people are saying currently try the key and then try stealthing. So we're going to try the key, and we're going to be as quiet as we can while we try the key. With 54% of the vote, Apis is going to try the magical key that they realise is still in their pocket. With 31% of the vote, they want to try stealthing and hoping to avoid being heard by this creature, if there is a creature here at all. Only 12% wanted to try and break the wood. Only 3% wanted to try and saw their way out of the wood. So Apis remembers in this moment, as this fight is happening outside, and Warren is yelling out in pain and anguish as they're falling and stumbling and smashing into things. We realised we got to get out of here or we're in significant trouble here. Apis realises in that moment that we've still got that magic key that Talila identified for us as being a mystery key, one that has a potential to open any lock. We put our left hand up and over the top of the hitching post, which for us as a dwarf is like up beneath our crook of our elbow there. And doing so gives us enough leeway with our right hand to reach down into our pocket. We lift our left hip up, and we manage to just about get the key. We get it out, we manipulate it into the lock. There's a 5% chance of it working. I'm going to roll a d20. Actually, I'm going to do it on the camera so that you know that on this thingamabob. A 10. It does not work. We slot the key into the manacles and try it. Come on, as quietly as possible. Come on. It doesn't work. We pull it out. We put it into the other one. This is technically a different lock, even though it would be the same key. It's technically a different lock, so I'm going to try it on the other manacle as well. Is Nightbot not refreshed or something? Oh no, there it is. Hey, look at that! And you know I didn't fudge it. You know I didn't fudge it because I rolled it on the chat for you. Ba-boom! Nightbot might have just saved our life. Okay. Oh, if ever there was a tense moment, eh? We try it on the left manacle. It does not work. We move it over into the left hand and try it on the right manacle. It doesn't work at first, but then we feel tension we feel the key getting suddenly very warm, as if like the metal is being manipulated and melted and reforming itself. There's suddenly a very hot exothermic reaction happening within the metal as the metal reforms itself into the contours of the tumblers within this this lock on our wrist, and then we feel the resistance as it starts to turn. We turn the key, and I'm going to roll a stealth check to see how quietly we've done all of this stuff. All right, so with a 5, we didn't do that very stealthily. As we turned it, there's a relatively loud click that happens in the silence of the barn after the last thing hit the ground, and there is no more sound. Click! The click of the padlock comes off, and before we've realised what's happening, the metal of the padlock has slipped off of our wrist and hits against some of the wooden the strut to which we were attached. Clunk! It hits against the wood, but we realise we're free. As soon as the thing opens, the mystery key is dissolved into powder, which dissipates into the air. Good use for it, though, eh? So, at this point, another perception check is required. Perception. Oof, that's a 3. Perception is a +2, +2, that's +4, so that's a 7 perception check. 7 perception, we don't notice it means that we don't notice the smoke until we are out of the barn. Poof. We bust, out of the cell in which we are in. The cell which we are in. We bust through the stable door and we look out to the front, and the first thing that catches our eye is there is a lot of dancing shadows along the ground. As soon as we sort of open the cell door, there is a shadow that rushes in towards us, and we sort of dodge back thinking that it's something dangerous, and then we realise no, it's the shadow of a wooden beam that's holding up the rafters of this barn. There is now a rather significant fire between us and the exit to the barn. It seems like the body of Warren is now slumped. You can't really make out any details, especially with the flickering of the light illuminating right behind him. He's kind of silhouetted. You can see that he is slumped down, and there is a short sword lying near his hand. The table that we were all sitting around, the wooden table, has been tipped to the side as if he fell into it. A couple of the chairs on the other side have been tipped over, and the lantern that was on it smashed and set fire to a bunch of the stuff over there. So we can now that we're out of the cell, we can see that there is smoke. It's not down to this level. Thankfully it's a tall barn with a hayloft, so there is the smoke. It's going to be a long time before we're having to worry about smoke inhalation. But getting out of the barn means that we will potentially take some fire damage, because it's pretty much blocking our exit between here and there. Is Warren still alive? He's not moving from where you are, but you can run over to the table and try and see if he's alive if you want. What do we want to do, guys? Right, seeing as we're now an escaped convict, it's now time to go on the run. Will we be blamed for Warren's death? Grab our gear and leg it. Potentially, yeah. We could try and find our gear. We could try and help Warren. Situation question: where are we in comparison to other people? So we are about 5 to 10 minutes walk away from the main town proper. We're on the let me show you the map. Let me show you a map of the area. Grab our gear and drag Warren out somewhere. Can we grab his potentially dead body and drag him along to prove that we did not kill him? Grab Warren, grab the sword, and go. Is the cloak fire resistant? No, it is not. Well, we don't know that, but presumably not. Talela, whatever the hell I'm calling her. Talila did not mention that it was fire resistant, which she probably would have if it was. We can't extinguish the fire, it's too big. Yeah, at this point, it's getting to the point where it's... If you had a fire extinguisher or some sort of fire extinguishing spell, then yeah, you'd probably be able to do it still. It's probably about 5 to 10 feet. It's probably about a 7-ish foot cube of fire at this stage. Alright, lots of people asking to do stuff. I'm not going to be reading you for 1 second while I try and find the I'm going to pull up my map of the area. This is not how I intended today's session to go, but hey, such is D&D. Is it this one or this one? I think it's this one. Could use Fireball to blast our way into freedom. Edit the map. Good idea, Sparrow with the table. What did Sparrow say? Grab our stuff, flip the table into the fire to suppress part of it for a moment, make a path out. Ooh, that could work. That could potentially work. That's pretty smart. Like, tip the top of the round table over where the fire is to give ourselves like a way through it without flicking through the flames. That would be potential. The longer we leave it, the fire is spreading rapidly. So that would work for the next couple of rounds, potentially. But the longer you leave it, the less chance that is of working, because the fire is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. This is the surrounding map. This is Shadridge particularly. Jack Creed's farm, where we first started the thing. Colton's farm over here. This is about, for scale, this is about 2.5 miles-ish. This is about 3 miles. Shadridge is obviously a very small frontier town, and over on this side of it, probably about a 5-minute walk away, so probably about the top of the H here, that would be where you are currently. You're about a 5 to 10 minute walk away from the town proper. And it's been 6 minutes or so since the Darren and Toria left to go and get help, or to go and get Kathleen at least. And they probably wouldn't have been meandering at a walk. They would have been in quite a hurry, I imagine. So you would imagine that that Darren and Toria are probably in Shadridge now, maybe even on the way back if they've found Kathleen quickly enough. So that's where we are. What do we want to do? Does the barn have windows or a back exit? The barn does not have windows. You can look for a back exit, but you can't see one from where you're currently standing. Looking for a back exit has the risk of there not being one and you've wasted time, so the fire's now bigger. But it has the potential reward that there's a back exit and you don't have to go through the fire. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Really, you can choose. We've got basically each thing that you do allows the fire to grow a little bit bigger. If you check on Warren to see if he's alive, then the fire gets a little bit bigger. If you go and grab your gear, the fire gets a little bit bigger. If you try and pick up Warren's body and leave with it, the fire gets a little bit bigger. If you go to see if there's a back door, the fire gets a little bit bigger. So your best way of getting out of this without taking damage is to go for the exit immediately before the fire gets too big. But doing so leaves all of your stuff inside, and it leaves Warren inside, and all the rest of it. So it's some decisions to be made. Is your gear visible and accessible? You don't see where the guy put your gear. He took it off you and then locked you in a cell, and then you heard him go and put it elsewhere before he left with Toria. So you'd have to look for your gear, which there's not a lot of places for it to be. You have an idea of where it might be, but you can't see it. If they pull a protection away from Edith, that Darren is a dick. All right, so how are we going to do this? Let's see. Get stuff, get Warren, get out. A lot of people saying that. So what do we do first? I'm gonna make this a poll. First thing we do, is it look for our gear? Is it check on Warren? Is it look for an alternative exit? Is it push the table onto the fire to try and dampen it a little? Or is it just run, get outside as quickly as possible? Try and think like Apis. Who is Apis? Who do you want Apis to be? What sort of actions does Apis take? This is not asking what you do as a player if you were in this situation. It's asking, what does this character of Apis Hive do in this situation? Try and put yourself in the moment. You've just bust out of the door. You have a single manacle still attached to your left wrist with a dangling chain and an open manacle on the other side. You can see an open barn. You are down the back half of this barn, With your movement speed, you can probably get to Warren. You can probably get to the front of where the rest of the barn is. There are a few there's a bit of a makeshift kitchen that's been set up in this place at the front of the barn against the front wall. There are some crates and boxes and things that your stuff might be in. There is the table and chairs that are by the front door that are between you and the fire. If you used your action to dash, you could get out of through the fire and out of the front door, but you'd take fire damage. If you use your action to tip the table, you could do so, but then you don't have your movement to get out yet. So there's lots of things to take into account. What do we do? What do we do? One of Apis' traits is that they'll always help those in need, but if they think that their own life is in danger, maybe that trumps it. There's traits that we came up with for Apis is kind of who they have been up to this point, but people do change over time. So as you guys are playing Apis, maybe you decide that Apis is a little bit more one way or the other. With 56% of our vote, Apis decides to look for our gear first, with 42% of the vote wanting to check on Warren, and only 2% wanting to flip the table onto the fire. So Apis, in the moment, is a little bit torn between checking on Warren, checking on our gear. We realise that if Warren has died to whatever this thing is, or even been severely wounded because of whatever this thing is, I'm gonna be essentially jumping into a raging river to try and save someone who's drowning, and leading to myself drowning in the process. So if I just run over to his body willy nilly and just check him for life signs, then in the moment, the best case scenario is he's still alive, but now the worst case scenario is he's dead and the thing attacks me. So in the moment, Apis thinks it's much better, I'm much more helpful to Warren if I've got my gear that I can actually attack with. So in the moment, you see the boxes, you use your movement to dash through the straw on the ground, not slipping over it. You can now smell smoke and hear the crackling of the fire as it's growing larger. It's now encompassed the entire front doorway, so getting out is not an option without going through this fire or finding an alternative exit. You run over to the crates. Oof, I'm going to make an investigation check to see how quickly you find your things. Investigation, which hopefully should work if Nightbot is feeling like doing it. There you go. So Nightbot is feeling like making the check, but unfortunately it's only a 7. So with a 7, I'm going to say it's going to take 2 whole rounds in order for you to find your things. You upheave the first crate, you look inside, there's a bunch of rations, just a load of food, dried food goods to try and maintain the barracks having something to eat without having to go to the town every time. The fire starts to grow larger. You can feel the warmth from it even from here. It's starting to get to the size of like a medium-sized bonfire. You open up the next crate. You can see that there are some Knights of Kevostna gear in here. There are some cloaks. Actually, no, there wouldn't be cloaks. Those ones are given out when you are awarded. There are some insignia pins. And there are a few weapons in sheaths, mostly short swords. Not my stuff. Boof, you go to the next one over, you smash it open. Eventually, you see a crate that's got your things in it. It's got your bags, your bow and arrows, and your longsword that was on your hip. You quickly grab them, you chuck them on, and it's taken 2 full rounds for you to get to this situation. You now turn round, you're faced with the same option. The fire has grown fairly largely now, and it has encompassed all of 2 of the chairs. The table is mostly on fire now. We now have a second poll to do. What do we do now at this point? Getting out through the front door will cause us fairly significant burns, but we feel like we could still do it if we had to. So we've got our things now. We're re-equipped with all of these belongings. Do we want to run to Warren now and check if he's alive, or if we want to take him with us? Do we want to look for another exit out of this barn? Do we want to flip the table, run past Warren, flip the table over onto the fire to try and get out ourselves? Or do we want to take the shorter route, which is directly through the flames? Might be slightly easier than going over the table, but then obviously we're running directly through flames and not over a flaming table instead. Things to keep in mind. grab Warren, use him as a meat shield, run out of the fire. Not much meat on Warren. Get your sword out just in case. Big light equals no sword needed yet, even in front of barn outside. There is a lot of, there's a lot of light being cast from this huge fire, and a lot of shadows. Apis is in a bit of too much of a panicked mode to notice the shadows right now, but to do anything about the shadows. They're certainly noticing the shadows dancing around them. There are a lot of dancing shadows in this barn with you. Just grab Warren. Don't investigate him here. That would save time. That would save time. If you investigate Warren, the fire grows. But if you investigate Warren and find out he's already dead, maybe you're okay with leaving him. Maybe even if he is dead, maybe you want to take his corpse as a proof that you didn't kill him. Grab Warren, run outside. Grab Warren, flip the table, run outside. Grab Warren and dash. He's not like wearing plate armor. He's wearing leather armor. 72% of the vote say to run to Warren, with only 20% saying to flip the table, and only 4% saying to look for an exit or run through the fire. So Apis, in the moment, Apis' mind wanting to help people. Apis will always help a person in need. So they're equipped in order to deal with it now. They feel more confident in themselves to deal with a challenge if something was to arise. So Apis suddenly runs back across the width of the barn to the front corner. As they get to Warren, you can see much more detail about the state that Warren's body is in. It is very much like that of Paul. He's kind of face down, his hand out to one side. It looks like by the end he was barely able to lift the weight of his own leather armor or his own head. His hair is still fine. You can start to smell the smell of burning hair, like some of his hair is starting to curl and singe from the heat, the proximity of the fire. This is all just happening as you're running towards him. You can see that his body is gaunt. His face is gaunt. His skin seems to sort of hang off him, as if all of the muscles of his face and hand have just disappeared. And he is lying unconscious, unmoving, with his eyes open. You're pretty sure that he's dead, but Edith was in a very similar state before she moved and started talking to you as well. So you're not 100% sure that he is dead. He might just not have the strength to lift his head or talk anymore. So you are at Warren. You've used your movement to get to Warren. You can use your action to grab the body or your action to investigate, or at this point you can use your action to tip the table as well. So do we want to investigate him, just pick him up, which you feel like, given his current state, you will be able to lift him easily enough, because he's mostly just skin and bones, literally. So flip the table first, grab the body first, investigate him first. Which do we want to do? Just start putting it in the chat so that I don't have to do an actual poll unless it's clearly not a consensus. Grab him, grab the body, table, and then grab the body, table, grab him. I think assume that he's like Edith, flip the table and go. Pick him up, grab him, pick him up. Alright, it's pretty much unanimous. Apis at this point doesn't think to stop to like investigate or anything, see if he's dead or whatever. You just pick him up, hike him over his shoulder. You kind of prepare yourself to be picking up a human teenager of about Warren's size and build. And you realise, holy shit, there's nothing to him anymore. Without any trouble at all, you pick him up and throw him over your shoulder. He's a cumbersome shape, but he's definitely light enough that you can pick him up. The fire has grown a little bit. With you stopping to grab him and pick him up, the fire grows a little bit more. You are now taking damage. Apis takes 4 points of fire damage at the end of that turn. You're down to 34 points. The next turn in combat is to flip the table and get out, right? So we flip this table over, which is already on its side. We just like push the top part over onto the fire properly. By touching the table, now that we've taken time to go and grab our stuff first, the table is actually on fire now as well, but on the side that is on the against the fire. So we take another 4 points of damage as we put our hand against this burning wood and push it. We've now taken 8 points of fire damage. But the table does fall down with a heavy thud onto one section of the fire. it will mean that for that 5-foot section, we will that square of combat essentially, we will not take fire damage for running across it. Thankfully, we're wearing boots, so even though we're running across burning wood, we'll be moving at a speed that won't matter. But the fire has grown to the point where there are another two sections of flaming ground between us and the door. So we will have to run through that fire to get out. So we flip that table with our action, and with our movement, we're going to move towards the door. I'll do an athletics check to see if we can jump off of it's like we're running across the table. We're going to jump off of it to try and like stay out of as much of the flames as possible. I'll do that by going athletics is an athletics check like so. Thank you, Nightbot. 20, dirty 20. So we've got him up on the shoulder. We've got our longbow across this shoulder. We run past onto the table. Our foot hits the wood and it splinters beneath us because we realise the wood is starting to weaken now because of the fire. But it's enough that we can put our other foot down on the other side of the table, which seems to be balanced on the remnants of burning chair. We put our foot down on that one and it kind of seesaws downwards. It kind of throws us a little bit, but we do manage to get out of there with only... So the first one is going to be reduced to a... Where's the dice I'm looking for? There it is. Maxed it though. 8 points of damage from that first square. And then the next square is a 9. Ooh, boy. Oof, then real dice. I really wanted to hurt Apis. So that was a further 8, taking us down to 22, and then a further 9 points of fire damage, taking us down to 11. Apis is now wounded as they reach the door, but they do reach the door. The fire behind them now, poof, just slams through that front door of the barn. It almost splinters off of its hinges as it comes smashing down and smashes into the wall on the other side. We tumble out into the night. And we are out in the darkness, but now that we've opened the door, the firelight behind the barn is now illuminating this huge patch of dancing, flickering illumination in front of us on the grassy lawn. We are out. We are away from the fire. Everything else that was in the barn has now been left in the barn, and without some sort of significant help, it's definitely going to be incinerated very shortly. What do we do now? We have a body. We have a body of someone who may or may not be conscious on our shoulder, and we've just burst out into the night. What do we want to do? $13. What did we say? Oh, I said 11. Yeah, 22 minutes. So we're on 13 health. We're still wounded. Run to the town. Check on Warren, check on Warren, check on Warren, check on Warren. How long does a barn burn? Probably a long time. It's a fairly sizable barn. Investigate Warren, check on Warren. Alright, so we slump him down onto the grass as lightly as we possibly can. His head lolls back and lies there. We're not very hopeful as we reach down to sort of check his pulse, check his breathing, all of that sort of thing. I'm going to do a medicine check, which I think is this one. Yes, it is. Oh my God, Nightbot. Oh boy. Nightbot's helping us out with some very critical rolls, but not on most of them. For the average, we're rolling relatively low. In the moment, we're just too panicked to know for sure whether he's alive or dead. The medicine check doesn't show up one way or another. Where he could be alive and just he's relatively warm still. It's like obviously he's been sitting next to a fire, and also even if he is dead, he's only very recently dead. So one way or another, he's as warm as we would expect him to be, maybe even a little warmer. The leather armor on his chest is still relatively hot to the touch from his proximity to the flames. You notice that there's one patch of his hair that's kind of almost entirely incinerated away. He's just staring, unmoving, unreactive up though, and so Apis would probably assume at this stage that he is dead, but they're not 100% sure. As I say, he could be just so weak that he doesn't even have the muscles to move his eyes anymore. Fire's going to get attention very soon. Yep, we are close enough to the town that you can basically see the barracks. You can basically see the old farmyard from where the town is, and so it won't be long before the fire attracts the attention of the people in the town. All right, very close vote, but with 52% of the vote, Apis decides to not pick up Warren and run towards the town. So Apis decides they're not going to pick up Warren and run towards the town. Is that because they're going to run towards the town without him? Or is that because they're going to stay here? What do you guys think? Why, the people who voted no? Tell me why. What do you want to do instead? I don't know that it will help our lying history if we run back to the town carrying the corpse of our guard. Do we want to leave? Leave Shadridge? Just get the hell out of here? Drink his health potion, stay with Warren. Stay and wait, stay with Warren, stay for the sake of love. Stay, I guess, stay here. Stay put, they're coming back. Alright, most people are wanting to stay. Somebody did come up with the option of drinking the health potion that you have down there. You've got a healing potion, which if you drink it carefully and calmly over the course of an action rather than a bonus action, it recovers full hit points, which would be 10. You'd recover 10 hit points if you drank your healing potion now. I'm not going to rest anytime soon. A short rest would take at least half an hour. So you could try and start a short rest now, but you know that the Knights are going to be back within 5 to 10 minutes probably. We should get inspiration for that. It's in our character. That is a good point, FNG Snafu, and I will give you inspiration for that. Drink the potion says no, with only 53% of the vote. Very close. This is why it's important to vote, guys. Every vote counts. You could swing the vote one way or another in this game. With only 53% of the vote, Apis decides not to drink the health potion right now. Despite the fact that they are burning, they've inhaled quite a bit of soot and smoke as they were jumping through the fire and running through it. They've got crackling burns up their legs that's going to hurt a lot. They've got the stinging sensation of their flesh cooking along their arms, their extremities. But they've collapsed on the grass outside and decide I'll save it for when it's much more appropriate. Use a water skin to cool yourself off, yes. Before I forget, I'm going to pop over to the battle map and give you inspiration for deciding to save Warren's body from the fire. There we go. You were acting in character. It makes sense. Apis is indecisive, which is also in character. You have a spell point? No, you don't. I probably just forgot to turn it off. Yeah, I forgot to turn it off. So we drink we drink the water from our water skin. We use some of it to sizzle over the. It's not exactly sizzling. We've not cooked meat, but it helps to cool. It feels nice and cool, but on our burns. Our leather armor's got some scorch marks on it as well. We look down at Warren, and now that we're out of the barn, we're not exactly in a not stressful situation. We're still in a highly tense, stressful situation, but now that we're out of the barn, I don't mind giving us another shot at that medicine check. While we wait for people to return. 13. With a 13 medicine check, we put our hand right over his mouth, real close. We don't feel any breath at all. We put our hand, the back of our hand, we reach our head right down to his face. We don't hear his breath. We don't see his chest moving. We're pretty sure he's not breathing at all. CPR, can we do that? That was encompassed by a medicine check. 13 isn't enough that Apis would know how to do CPR on this skeleton man, but it was enough to check whether or not they are alive or dead. CPR might crush him. Fake CPR until the Knights arrive. Slap Warren, tell him to walk it off. Give him a tap on the face, see if there's any reaction. There's no reaction. His face is still warm, but no reaction. Right now we need to resuscitate Warren, right? Mouth to mouth. We could try. We Would the potion restore him? Potentially. Loot the barn. We ain't going back in that barn. It's on fire. Would removing his armor help? It could. It could. So that's what we'll start to do then, because Goofy's suggestion will remove the armor, which will also, along with everybody else's suggestion, that would be the first port of call that you would do to try and do mouth-to-mouth and resuscitation anyway. So you start to undo the armor. The leather armor's got the leather ties at the top of and the side here. You manage to pull the leather armor up and over his limp body, just going with you until you've got his undershirt underneath, which seems to be just drenched in sweat. Potion works if he can breathe and his heart is beating. If he is considered dead right now, then the potion would not work, as Apis would probably know. If he's considered dying or unconscious, if he's still alive in any way, then the healing might work. Out here in the light of the fire flickering through the front doors, we look down on his body as we've taken the leather armor off, and we notice something else about him. Not only is he thin and skeletal, all of the muscles of his neck is like spider thin, spindly little spider leg kind of thin. You can just see the thyroid bone and the spinal cord, the spinal column. Sorry, just underneath this sleeve of skin. But you also notice that the skin and the veins beneath it are quite prominent, and they seem to be dark, really dark. There is a darkness around his eyes and a gauntness to his cheekbones that you didn't notice inside. It seemed like it was a trick of the light, but now outside you can see that there is a darkness to his skin that seems to almost spider out like a damn it, there's a word for it. The sort of lightning pattern. There's a something effect. What is it called? Not a Leidenfrost effect. That's water. And does anybody know the name of the word I'm looking for? That's like a spider webbing kind of lightning pattern where something. There's a word for it. Fractal. Fractal isn't the right word, but it gives you the right sort of idea, I guess. He's got this fractal kind of darkness around his eyes that almost seeps down his cheeks. And as you've taken off his armor, you can see that down his neck there's some more of this sort of fractal thing disappearing below his undershirt. You quickly grab and tear the undershirt, and you sure enough see that the body is just covered in this dark, bluish black spider webbing energy around his body. This network of fractal appearance. You do remember that when you arrived at Edith, she had a similar sort of thing around her eyes. And when you cast Cure Wounds, the darkness went away, but her muscles didn't return. Lichtenberg figure, thank you, that's what I was looking for. The Lichtenberg figure of this lightning-like effect down his body. Have we seen or heard of something like this? Let's make an Arcana check, which would be this one. Damn it! One short. It's this one. That's Arcana. Technically, we are just as good as Investigation and Arcana, so I'll go with the first roll, which was a 15. With a 15, we would instantly be considering necromancy. There is some sort of necromantic... There's something about this figure that makes us think of necromancy. We've listened to a lot of childhood stories as a kid. Apis is quite book learned with a +3 intelligence. We know a lot about a lot of things. Facts about lots of things. And maybe there was a few illustrations from a few of our books growing up that would indicate like a necromantic aura or energy. Whatever did this, not only withered away his muscles, but also did some sort of necromantic damage to him, it seems. Maybe a curse that slowly eats the person up until they're dead. Could be. did not seem like it was a long-standing curse, because until now, like until the very evening when Warren started to walk away from you, he'd never complained about being weak or feeling tired. He wasn't particularly old. He was a youngish teenager kind of kid as well. Is it contagious? Well, we've already touched his body and gotten really close to his face, but we don't feel anything. Although we can't see our own skin, so maybe our skin's starting to spiderweb like that as well. Can't see our own face. You can imagine Apis' epic mum telling them stuff in their kitchen. Yep. There's definitely some sort of monster. We hear him say, "It's here." So he clearly saw whatever it was. The sound of his death is still ringing in your mind as well. When he was hit, when he was struck, when whatever it was doing whatever it did to him, he would call out in pain. But it was not the cry of someone being hit by a sword. It was not the cry of someone being struck by an arrow or bludgeoned by a mace. It was the cry of someone having their muscles sucked out through their skin. It still rings in your mind. You can hear him calling out. You can hear how his breath became weaker and his cries became weaker as he lost the muscles in his diaphragm to be able to even cry out in pain anymore. You remember his last breath as he slumped to the ground. You slump down the ground next to him and look at the fire, look at the barn. The barn wall is now on fire. The flames have curled up outside of the doorway that you bust open, and is now flicking and licking across the eaves of the barn, which, as you watch, very quickly take until the thatched roof of the barn is now on fire. There is smoke pouring from out the upper window of the hayloft and the doorway, billowing. You hear something creak and crack and groan, and then a from inside as what you assume to be the hayloft collapses to the ground below it. You could be sitting like that for minutes or half an hour. You're not sure how long it is as you sit there staring, wondering what the hell is happening in this world and how it's happening so quickly, before you hear the sounds of very hurried footsteps running towards you from your left. You glance over that way and you can see the return of Darren and Schläfer. Kathleen is not with them. You stare at this fire, not even realizing that you're still close enough to be feeling the heat on your face and your forehead as your sweat instantly perspires from the pores of your skin and then evaporates and leaves behind it this salty texture to your skin, which dries up immediately and crinkles and feels tight. You don't realize that this is even happening until you turn your head away and you feel the cool air rush across your face as your ear now starts to heat up. At that point, you sort of stand to your feet shakily. And what do? Darren and Schläfer are now running towards you. Schläfer is for those who weren't here last week, Schläfer is a badger. She's also a squire. She's same rank to Darren. The badger Kathleen has apparently not returned. You can only assume and hope that she has stayed with Edith. Sit there with a sullen face, wait for questions, turn towards them, explain what happened, showing Warren. So as they run, Darren seems to shout something to Schläfer as he runs, and he draws his sword out as he's running towards you. He seems angry and dangerous. She also draws her sword and runs. She's kind of staying behind him. She shouts something back to him. You're not really hearing what he's saying because of your head is kind of still ringing with fuzz of what's going on. But as soon as you see the swords being drawn, your head kind of clears with a bit of adrenaline as you realise that this could be a fight. You stand up and you put your hands right up in the air, and you say, "Please let me explain. I didn't do this." What exactly do we say? You guys are playing Apis, not me. So what exactly do you say? Help. Help me. It's necromancy. It's necromancy. Help me. Necromancy. Warren needs help. It wasn't me. It wasn't us. It was just here. He slows to a stop and holds his longsword towards you as she comes over as well, and she's got her longsword drawn too. She looks from you to the corpse, to back to him, to the burning barn. She says, We should move away from the fire at the very least." And he looks back at the barn and he gestures with his sword. "Move to the side. Please, look at his face. I cannot do that myself. It was here. The shadow was here." He looks at your one hand, which is dangling a manacle, and your other one, which is free. He moves you away from the fire, leaves Warren there for a second. You're about 30 feet or so away from you're still in the illumination of the firelight. "Please, look at his face. That thing should still be around." "Explain yourself. How did you get out? Did he let you loose?" "No, I had a key." "You have a key to my manacles? Preposterous. I'm the only one with the key to those manacles." "No, I had a magic key that I've heard enough. Get on the ground. I swear, I'm trying to explain you had a magic key to his manacles was enough to get him to, all right, shut up, get on the ground. So you sit yourself down and put your hands out. He grabs the other end of the manacle and clicks it back onto the right wrist that's now above your head. You feel a sword tip just resting gently against your shoulder blades in case you try to do anything. "Please, I'm telling you the truth. I had a key in my pocket that had magical qualities," and his hands start to come down to your hips and start to search through your pockets. "It's not there anymore. Once it worked, it disappeared. Look, we're focusing on the wrong thing. I was in my cell. I heard him die. He was fighting the thing. He said, 'It's here.' And then he knocked the lantern off the table and it smashed. And please, we need to get back into the light. The darkness is dangerous." At this point, you hear some whispers from Hleffer into his ear. You're not able to pick up exactly what he says. He sort of whispers back, and you catch. But why would you even? Why? But what makes you think? Then there's a few more words that you don't catch. And she says, "I think he's telling the truth. Just at the very least, we need to take him back to the town. This place isn't safe. Grab a torchlight. He's no danger to us. We can deal with him when we get back to the town. Kathleen will know what to do." He says, "Right." You feel his hand come up to the manacles above your head and unclick one of them, and then he grabs both hands and he puts them behind your back. Before he re-clicks them, he takes the bow off of your shoulder, and then he re-clicks your hand behind your back, and he quite roughly and forcefully stands you to your feet. He looks over at Warren and says, "There's nothing we can do for him now." And he walks over. He grabs Warren's body and kind of just drags him away from the fire so that he doesn't get incinerated if the barn collapses. He stands to your feet and starts to push you back towards the town. Hleffer walks beside you, and you see her hand come round to about your belly, and then she searches and finds the pommel of your sword and draws it out of your pocket. You're still wearing your satchel bag with all of your things in it, so you've still got all of these things, but you just don't have your two weapons. You do probably have your hunting knife, which would be in your satchel bag. So if you needed a weapon for whatever reason, you've got your hunting knife down there. He pushes you back in the back towards the main town as the barn burns behind you, and you hear another as another chunk of it falls down into the fire. Bring Warren. We want to carry Warren. Incinerating is better. Start struggling. Shout to bring Warren. Bring Warren. As he pushes us away from the fire and Warren, we turn and say, "We can't leave him. Bring Warren. Please bring him with us." And he says, "Why? You can't leave him behind. I can carry him. I can carry him. Please." "Why? You need him for your necromancy? You need his body? You're going to bring him back as some sort of living abomination of what he was?" He might still be alive. Edith was in that state and she was alive. Was alive? I'm saying that she was, when I got to her, she was alive. She's still alive, right? And you turn to Clifford and she nods. She's still sleeping. He might still be alive. Please don't leave him. I'm not behind this. I am going to, let's see. I'm going to roll a persuasion check. There are multiple things at work that are giving you both advantage and disadvantage, so I'm thinking it'll just be a straight persuasion check, which will be this one. Oops, wrong one. This one. A 10. Not the most persuasive argument. I'm going to roll for him a contested check. His is going to be just kind of a stubbornness roll to see whether he gives in to you or not. He says, "I'm sorry, Necromancer, but you've had your chance," and he pushes you forwards and doesn't pick up Warren. We continue to babble the responses that you're giving. Listen, he tried to save us. We can't just leave him here. He deserves better than to be left to the wolves. And he says, "Wolves won't come close to a fire that size. He'll be there when we come back. Please, no. If I did this, I wouldn't have dragged him out of the fire. I don't propose to understand your reasons for killing my friend. But I've heard enough from you now." And he kicks you in the back to keep going. You kind of stumble to your knees, and he picks you back up again. You continue to plead for the 5-minute walk from the barn to the town proper. As you're arriving at the town proper, you can see that the lights are on in the street. There are oil lanterns in the street, not many, but there's a couple around the sort of the prime buildings in the centre of town that have been lit. There are a lot of people out in the street. It seems like a few dozen, maybe like 4 or 5 dozen people are out in the streets with lanterns and torches around, confused as to what's going on, and there's lots of gossip and talking, and everybody's sort of milling around. There's a bit of chaos happening around the front of Edith's shop, which has a busted-in doorway. Let's kill Darren. I hate him. He's a police officer doing his job from his perspective. Try and think about it. You just admitted to he found you with a corpse, and you seem to know that he was in danger. And then he took you. He sort of asked you to come clean about your knight's number, and you evaded the question. And then he asked you again, and you finally came clean to committing a rather serious crime of impersonating one of them. And so he arrested you, and sure enough, you didn't struggle. That was a point in your favour. But then he locked you in a thing, left his comrade on duty guarding you, and when he comes back, his comrade's dead and the barn's on fire. He's pretty sure that you're responsible for this thing. You have been present for most of what he understands is going on. So he may have understood wrongly, but it's understandable from my perspective why he would be acting the way he's acting, given his role. Sure enough, kicking you while you were handcuffed isn't a good thing to do, but also he thinks that you just murdered his friend. So he's only human and got a little bit emotional at that, and maybe took it out on you in the way that he shouldn't have. So he pushes you into the town proper and says to he starts moving you towards Edith's place. A lot of people start looking your way and gossiping, and there's a few people calling out like, "What's happening? Why is Apis arrested? What's happening? Oh, what's going on? Who's that guy? That's Apis. Why is he? Is he responsible? What's going on?" All of this sort of gossip happens as you're sort of led through the streets towards Edith's place, and as you get to Edith's place, you see there's a person on the door. Let's see who it would be. Let's say it would be a man you haven't met yet. It would be a man who Clifford says, "William, is she still upstairs?" And he says, "Yes, she is." He's a young human man, maybe in his 20s or so. You haven't seen him around, but he seems to be fit and active and healthy, relatively strong dude. He says, "She's still upstairs. Who is this?" And she says, he's a wanderer. Let's not talk more about it yet." And this guy steps to the side and lets you into Edith's shop as you are pushed forwards with the two knights. They lead you upstairs, and you walk into Edith's bedroom, which is still very well lit, and you see Edith still lying in bed with a single very light sheet over her very, very, very weak body. And you see Kathleen standing there as well. "What is this?" This is Apis. I found him red-handed with Warren's. He sort of stumbles over the words. "With Warren's body." Her eyes go wide. "No, Apis. I didn't do this, Kathleen. I swear I was there when it killed him. I was locked up in a cell. Yes, a cell that he managed to escape. He says he had some sort of magic key. I think he convinced Warren to open his manacles, and then he stabbed him and set the barn on fire to cover his tracks. There's no chance of us investigating the crime scene. The barn is completely ablaze." "Apis, what happened?" I'm not responsible here." She looks at you and looks at him and says, "You're not a knight, are you?" "I'm not." "So you lied about that. What makes me think that you're not lying about this?" "I was with you when we discovered Edith. Did you notice any sort of acting on my part? I'm currently trying to help you, help Edith, help this town. Something is happening here." "Ever since I met you, there was something different about you, Apis. I wasn't fully convinced when you said you were a knight." I'm going to roll to see whether she's what she's feeling towards us at the moment, because there's a lot of things that are going on inside her head right now. You returned the property of Jack Creed, but that did mean that you had it on your person. You said it was goblins. You said you encountered several goblins on your journey through the woods. You disappeared for much longer than we expected you to. And when you came back, you only had five goblin ears. Despite saying and claiming that you met well over a dozen. You have been at the scene of the crime for both Edith and Paul. And then when arrested and left with Warren, we find you dead. We find your guard dead, and the cells burned to the ground. You understand how this looks for me. I understand. Mel can vouch for what I said in the woods, everything that I have said in the woods. Oh yes, your giant bee companion that only you can speak to. She can vouch for you. It's convenient, isn't it? The elves can vouch for me. I have been... Oh, so the elves that are a 2 days walk somewhere in the woods. You want us to walk into the night forest with you? Please, somebody here must be able to speak Sylvan. I'm not the only one. The elves can speak it. The elves can vouch for me. I swear I'm telling the truth. You feel the hand of Darren clench tighter on your shoulder as you're getting a little bit more energetic. Mayor Jackson knows where the elves. The mayor knows where the elves are. They're not just somewhere in the woods. I know where the elves are. The mayor knows where they are. If you take Jackson's word, he can direct you to them, and they can vouch for me. I swear I am not your enemy here. I am trying to help. Why would I have informed you about this? You're alert to this. If I was the shadow, I wouldn't have made so much noise about it. I would have kept my mouth shut. That much is true, unless you thought that I was going to find out anyway. The carpenter dying is one thing. It was suspicious. He got weak towards the end of his life. But if Edith had been found in this state, you would have known that would have raised bells, especially if on the same night Paul was to have been found in this state as well. At that point we would have known that something was going on. So it's better for you to come clean to me, as it were, right before we discover it for ourselves anyway. I know your game. I know how people like you think. You don't... Kathleen, please, I don't... You can lock me up somewhere. I swear people will die. People will die without... How are you doing it? She gets down. She sort of kneels down in front of you. She's a little bit below your eye line now. How are you doing it? Tell me this and we can make it stop. It's not too late to confess to your crimes and to make it stop. No more innocent people need to die. I swear, Kathleen, I'm telling you the truth. I haven't done it. I don't know how it's being done. There are shadows at work. Have they gotten out of your control? Is that why you're panicking? It seems like she's already making up her mind about what is happening, what has happened. Franklin, ask Franklin, please. He's the baker here. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He can vouch that I would not do this. I have a suggestion, but unsure. Would we offer to be a bait? Ooh, bait might be an interesting one. You can watch me. Please, you can watch me personally yourself. You'll know that I do not do anything. I cannot... Do the shadows act independently? Is that why? I don't know, Kathleen. Why would I heal Edith? Because I was there and it was part of the show. I know how people like you think. You would have done it to try and get on my good side, and sure, stupid me, I fell for it. But I'm sorry, everything is going against you here. And I'm strike her in the face. I'm sick of this nonsense. While you're in a room with 3 knights and handcuffed without weapons, you're gonna hit her in the face. Tell her to step into a shadow and see for herself how it's done. I'm not doing this, but I'm willing to act as bait for the shadows. That's a thing that I would want everybody to agree on first before Apis says that. Lock me up, and when more people die, come to me for help. What do you get out of this? Why are you threatening the town this way? That is not a threat. I'm just saying that because I am not responsible, if I am locked up, it will not stop anything. Made up their minds, time to think of an exit strategy. If acting as bait is the only way to convince her, people like me, as you have something against dwarves. Do you have something against dwarves? You say after a long pause. She stands to her feet. How dare you? I am a badger of the Knights of Kevostna. I am nothing but professional for those in my care. This has nothing to do with you being a dwarf. It has everything to do with you being a criminal. Take them away. Darren turns you around and walks you to the door, and then turns back and says, "What should we do with him?" "I'm not sure yet. Take him to the mayor's house. Tell Jackson that we need a place to keep him, keep them overnight, while we try and work this thing out. Lock them up and make sure they don't have anything on them. I don't know how you use your magic," she now addresses you. "I don't know how you use your magic, but we will not allow you to talk your way out of it. Make sure they're gagged and blindfolded too." And he pushes you in the back and starts to lead you downstairs. A lot of people saying use me as bait. As you consider this for a second, knowing what this thing does to people, its victims, so you're in two minds about it. But in the last second, you shout out, "Use me as bait!" She calls down the stairs after you. "What?" "Use me as bait if you have to. I will show you that I am not behind this. I am not immune to its effects. If you have to, I will do it. If that is the only thing that will convince you." "Take him away," she just says to Darren, who continues to take you away. He takes you out the front, and you are led across the street through a lot of people who are looking at you in confusion and disgust. You see Franklin's face standing next to a young woman that you've seen before, but you haven't been introduced to. She was one of the crowd that was with Franklin when they first arrived at Edith's daughter in confusion. You assume from proximity that she's probably Sally, his new missus. They both look at you in sort of confusion and furrowed brows. You see a look of hurt and a look of, not rejection. On Franklin's face, you see a look of desperately hoping that it's not true. As you're passing people, a couple of people are spitting in your path. "Stay in the light! Everybody stay illuminated. Please stay in one place and keep the place lit up. The darkness is not our friend." You see the look on a few people's faces that it almost sounds like you're a raving lunatic now, shouting about the darkness being a danger and an enemy and things. You are walked up to Jackson's house. Jackson is standing on his porch looking at the whole thing. And Darren approaches and says, "We have reason to believe that we've found the culprit behind this situation." He looks at you. "Apis?" "No, not a chance." "We have reason to believe it." "What happened?" "Come inside." And he stands aside to let you inside with Darren and Clefa. He leads you into the drawing room of his house, and then just stands there. He doesn't offer anyone a seat. He just stands there, closes the front door to his place so that he makes sure no eavesdroppers are listening in. "Apis, what's happened?" Darren starts to speak and he holds up his hand. "I'll hear from you in a second. I want to hear it from Apis first." "I want to hear it from Apis first." "Darren, Jackson, I didn't do this. Please let me explain." "You can explain." To cut a long story short, you tell him everything that you've said about, like, since you discovered Paul and since everything you heard with Warren. You you talk to him. You tell him everything that you can remember in as great detail as you can remember. The fire burning and everything. The fact that Warren died in the course of like 30 seconds at most. Jackson listens quietly. A couple of times he holds his hand up to stop Darren from interrupting. And at the end he says, "Where's Warren?" "He left his body there in front of the fire." "I feel like maybe we should burn him." Darren sort of protests, makes a noise of protestation. He says, "No, I'm sorry. I know that sorry, accents are getting all mixed up together. Jackson, Australian. I know that he's your friend. I'm sorry about this, but I don't think that what's going on should be left out in the open. I don't know what's going on, but if Apis is telling the truth about the state of his body with spidering black marks on him, I don't think it's safe to leave his body as is. We should at the very least bury him, but I think I would feel happier if he was cremated." Darren thinks about protesting and then, "Yeah, all right, I'll get somebody onto that." And then Jackson says, "Is there anything else that I should know?" You tell him everything. You make sure to tell him everything that you discovered on the Colton's farm. Your suspicions around Mosh being somehow involved. And then eventually you sort of run out of things to say and start repeating yourself. And at that point, he kind of waves you quiet and says, "Right, I've heard from you, Apis. I've heard your whole story. I've given you a chance to tell me everything you need to tell me. I'm going to talk to Darren now, okay? You're going to let me speak to him, let him speak in full." He turns to Darren and he asks him, and Darren says, "So this is how I saw things." And he explains from the moment that you knocked on the barn door, and Warren answered, and then you said, "He's in trouble, come with me," and then he turned to grab Darren. He says, "At that moment I thought, I didn't think anything of it, but thinking back now, I wonder if Apis wanted to, if he was hoping that Warren would be alone in following him to Paul's house. Perhaps he thought he could split us up and kill us easier, and that he'd just killed Paul. He went to the barn to lure Warren away. He would kill Warren, and then he would come back for me on my own. Thankfully for me, Warren asked me to come with, and I came with, and we investigated Paul's house. Then we returned to the barn. I felt suspicious that this stranger, that I had no idea who he was, who was giving me orders. I asked who he was, and he evaded the question. At this point, Jackson interrupts and says, just a minor thing, Apis isn't a he. Just them and they, please." And you turn sort of somewhat surprised, but thankful. And Darren kind of narrows his eyes and shakes his head and says, "Sorry. They came clean to me, saying that they were not in fact a Knight of Kevostna. I informed them of the fact that was a serious crime, and I arrested them. I left them with Warren in charge, and hoped that would be enough. I wasn't aware at that point that they had gifted magical abilities, and so I suppose," he gets a little bit choked up, "I suppose Warren's death is partly my responsibility, and I accept that. I should have checked Apis's person more closely for items when I arrested them, but I thought that getting to Kathleen was of the essence." He turns to you and says, "Well, this is all so far adding up. Like you're both in agreement about the situation. Your speculations about Apis's motives notwithstanding, it seems like you're in agreement about the facts of the situation. I currently see not enough evidence to support the fact that Apis is the one responsible for the crimes, other than to say that Apis was present at majority of them. The one thing that I would call to you, Darren, is to say that before you arrived here, a few days ago, maybe, what was it, 4 days, 5 days? Sort of nods. Before you arrived here, we had another death similar to this. He says, yes, I heard. Howard, or Dickie. That's right. Apis definitively was not in the area for that occasion. Apis was investigating the woods, and he interrupts and says, yeah, well, they say that they were investigating the woods. And Jackson says, no, I believe that Apis was investigating the woods because I happen to know the Four Sisters. Darren looks confused. He says, there are 4 towns of elves nearby in the Fair Woods. They're known as the Four Sisters. They keep their existence quite secretive. When they arrive in town, they tell no one of where they came from, besides the people who need to know. That is myself and the people that they sell to, mainly Edith. I think it exceptionally unlikely that Apis would have heard of the existence of the Four Sisters without having actually visited them or stumbled across them on their travels. And for Apis to have been to those towns would indicate well and truly that they were in fact doing what they said in seeking out these goblins. Darren raises the objection that you didn't bring back enough goblin ears if you did in fact meet as many goblins as you said. And he says, to be fair to Apis, to play devil's advocate here, Apis did not know that there was indeed a bounty on the goblins when they set off. In keeping with everything that I know about Apis's character so far, from the times that they have spent in this town, I can say that Apis was acting in character when they selflessly chose to go and put their life on the line to deal with the goblins without the promise of financial reward. I don't think Apis knew that there was a bounty when they took the ears. And then Darren says, well, then why take the ears at all? And he says, that is a good question, Apis. I took the ears because there was in my bag you'll find a hunting knife. You know that I don't normally carry the longsword that I now have on my hip. You can see that it's, that she has. And you gesture, and Clifford holds up your longsword. You can see that it's brand new. It's hardly been used. I don't normally carry that longsword. I normally carry a short sword and a mace. You remember that? And he says, yeah, I remember. I sold them to a hunter in one of the Four Sisters in Munglofau. I met a blacksmith there. She told me that you tell her the story about why you wanted the elves, why you wanted the ears. She promised me this hunting knife as a loaner until I used it to cut off some goblin ears. She has a real thing for them. So I cut off the goblin ears for her. And then she didn't actually want the ears. She just wanted proof that I'd killed a goblin with it. And he looks at you and I believe him. Them, sorry. Darren looks like he realizes he's kind of losing a battle here and that Jackson's on your side. So he changes tack. Regardless, Kathleen is the knight to which we defer ever since Paul has passed away. She is the senior ranking officer in this town. She has asked me for you to put up Apis somewhere in the building, in your place of residence, somewhere safe and secure, potentially, preferably somewhere with a locked door. He's gone Australian now as well, god damn it. Preferably somewhere with a locked door, somewhere where I can blindfold and gag and manacle Apis so that if there is any other trouble, we know for sure whether Apis or not is behind it. Jackson turns and says, Apis, I really wish you hadn't impersonated one of the knights. This would have made things a lot easier. As it is, you have indeed committed a fairly serious crime, and I do have to defer to the senior knight in this matter. I will put you up here in the house, and I will personally look after Apis tonight. And Jackson says, all due respect, I would prefer to look after Apis myself. Right you are. And Jackson turns and leads you out of the drawing room. He leads you down into a wine cellar that's beneath his house. and would it be a wine cellar? Probably a coal cellar, more likely. He leads you down into a coal cellar, like out the back of his house, down into one of those. Open it up and down a coal cellar. Once down there, he turns on the lantern lights. It illuminates most of the room. There are piles of there is a pile of coal down here and a pile of dried dried firewood. He walks you over to a boiler that is under down here, like a potbelly stove situation, and says, "You may chain into this, I suppose. Chain them to this." So Darren comes around the front and takes the manacles off of one of your wrists and slings it around the metal sort of chimney that comes out the top of this pot-bellied stove, and manacles it onto the other side. Before he manacles it on, he takes the rest of your belongings off you once more, and you are now deprived of all of your gear below, except for the smaller things like a potion of healing and whatnot. He takes that stuff out. He puts it down on the ground, he manacles you up, and then he goes through all the rest of your belongings. He takes your belt off, he takes your pouch. You've got no money now, you've got no healing potions, you've got no caltrops, even all of the small things. You've got nothing left on you at all. He then goes down and starts unlacing all of your leather armour as well, off the other shoulder, and slips it up over the head, takes it off, leaves you in your underwear. And then uses he gets a blindfold out of the bag and puts it around your eyes, and puts a wadded up blindfold in your mouth to gag you, and puts another string around it to keep it in the mouth. So you are now gagged, blindfolded, and manacled to a potbelly stove in the coal cellar of Jackson's building. Everything is removed from you, even the magic clothes. You're in an undershirt and long johns. So you hear them sort of whisper some back and forth before some footsteps lead back up the stone steps, and you hear the coal door close, and then there's like a scraping of something along the wood outside of the coal door. And that's that. What do you guys think about? What goes through Apis's mind right now? You try and get some rest, try and go to sleep. Try and get some sleep, try and get a long rest. There's very little else you can do. How dark is it down here? It was pretty dark before you put a blindfold on, and now for you, obviously, it's pitch black. It was pretty dark. There were two lanterns two oil lanterns that the mayor lit as he walked down the steps of the cellar. Nothing we can do now, so we long rest. So at the end of this day, we found ourselves arrested and stripped of all of our belongings, gagged and blindfolded and chained to a cellar. I think that's probably a fitting place to leave it as we shimmy ourselves down the pipe, sit on the ground, and with our hands out in front and sitting up with our head lolling, we have the difficult time of trying to go to sleep. I won't shortcut to the end of the long rest, because things may happen during the night that prevent you getting a long rest. We'll find out next time. I will leave it there. We'll pick up there next time. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. Good job for coming clean to the Knights of Kevostna, and hope you manage to convince them of your innocence next time.